I kind of want you to lead again, Mig.
Are we gonna do the?
Oh, I love your 10 seconds. So yeah.
The 10-second countdown. Then fading in at 5. Okay.
Completely threw me off last week.
Sure. All right, let's do it. Let's
I didn't read the change log from 5-second countdown to 10-second countdown. I didn't. That was quite the buff you added in the patch notes.
All right. Okay.
So,
okay.
I didn't quite see that.
I guess the boss wants the 10-second countdown. We'll give it to him.
Don't call me a boss, Jesus Christ.
All right.
We always call you.
It makes me feel like I'm like the anyway. Hey guys, TMG Podcast episode 202. This is Carlos, and with me is Migs.
Hey. That's me counting down, yeah.
Well, they didn't hear the countdown. Like, it was cut out.
That's for
now
the
they know.
Cabinet. Now they know.
But we did anyway. Yeah, Migs is with us, and as well, Matthew is joining us today.
Hello.
And we are live on Facebook page, or our Facebook page, sorry. And we have a lot that we want to talk about. We are going to be covering Gears Tactics, Civ 6, and the likes. But yeah, this is a podcast about everything video games. And
I'm here too.
Oh dang. God. Yeah.
Whoa!
Carlos, come on.
A wild McGill has appeared.
Totally forgot. Hey, Migs. Thank you for joining in so abruptly.
The surprise.
I'm not recording this file for nothing, man.
Quite the format we have right now. It's too late.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Awesome.
We gotta talk all about the video games. And since you surprised me, Miggy, I guess we can start with you.
Oh my god, really? It's the oldest game.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Because we've talked about we've done the deep dive on the conspiracy series on Final Fantasy VII Remake, and of course what we think about the game overall. Some moved on, you didn't, which is not a bad thing. You went back to the future. I mean,
yeah, we have to go back, Kate.
It's your kids, Marty. It's changing the timeline.
McGill, do we become assholes or something?
Hell yeah!
You've been playing Final Fantasy VII, the original, and
the original
I'm sure everybody
PS1 version.
Yeah, yes. I'm sure everybody in Facebook would have known that this. Yeah, he stream it pretty much every day.
For the most part, every weekday. Yep. Sans today. But yeah, revisiting the old game because I literally haven't played. Well, not literally, but I haven't played the game proper since I was a wee lad back in 1999. Bless me bagpipes.
Commit to that one. Okay.
Yeah, so my memory of most of the game is super hazy. I remember some bits, but not much of everything else. So revisiting this has been a treat.
Yeah, I think I should revisit Final Fantasy VII because there are places or points where I didn't know that worked. Or that didn't work. Okay, cool. And because back in my mind, because you know how FF7 is overrated, as most of the world knows, and I'd say that having replayed it now with a fresh perspective on it in 2020,
I'd say that it's actually deserving of all the praise it got back then. Because back in my mind, because older FF games are better than 7, and the materia system in my memory was just you can make anyone a mage. It's not limited to a job system. But having replayed it and having, loving the combat in Remake and seeing how the materia system works in that game and it being very essential for certain tactics in hard mode even, I go back to classic FF7 and see how very important the materia system is in that game too. So it's not as simple as I remember it. It's not I need a fire spell, give it to whoever. It's a lot more in-depth, and in certain aspects more in-depth even than in Remake. Because equipping certain types of materia actually affect your stats.
Yep.
So
big time.
Right. So equipping say the magic-based green materia, if the more of them you equip, the stronger your magic stats get, but the weaker your physical stats become. that's like the payoff or the turnabout for that, where you can gain more MP and magic damage at sacrificing your HP and physical damage or physical defense or something like that. And it applies to different types of materia too, like say summoning materia will have different forms of stat changes, and like you can have the support materia, the blue one, not affect any stats at all, since they tend to work with its own rules of like linking materia and all that.
Right. Like they're for synergy purposes, basically.
Right, and the yellow one doesn't affect your stats at all, but you gain a new, like a legitimately new menu in your ATB commands with the yellow materia.
And then, like, compared on Remake, it's just a flat out, like, very simple. It's like very basic. It's there, but it's just very basic.
Yeah, like the Remake version is more or less the same, but simplified in certain aspects. Like the whole stat changing parts is not present in Remake, but pretty much it functions like
the same way,
like
right?
They're really similar in the way they function.
I guess they're just keeping it like, we'll just do that next game. It's fine.
No, it's pretty true to like, because it is like a remake, so you'd expect it to be more or less the same in a lot of aspects, and that just shows how much like the similarities between the two games are, not just in like story and certain presentation, but straight up systems are very similar in that regard, and it's great. Also, like in my mind, because FF7 takes a very different approach in the theming of RPGs, where it's all like steam future punk as opposed to the typical heavy fantasy that previous Final Fantasy games were relying on. Yeah. So I thought like, maybe the story is like a lot, dumber down for also the new audience that they were trying to tackle at the time, since it was a big console shift back then. But like 7 is like the story is a lot deeper than you think it is. Like it's definitely not as crazy as other games, but there's a lot more to it than you'd initially expect. There's a lot of beats that you can pay attention to, and even with the poor translation of the PlayStation 1 version, like you still get a lot of it. It comes off across like pretty well for the most part, but also it shows its age.
Now, I want to ask about it actually. So because for me, like that was what sort of made the game I wouldn't say less inaccessible, but it made me not appreciate the game even when the game first came out. Was that translation was pretty rough. And I think when I go back to it, when I go look back at screenshots and I look back at let's plays of this stuff, like I kind of get what the meaning of the bad dialogue is, but it still feels like a hurdle to overcome. How does that feel now in 2020? Like the translation, like what kind of obstacle or not does it present for you?
I'd say it's also like definitely a product of its time. It's just that the translation doesn't help. So you know how like there's like I guess the best example I can think of right now is of course how games portray women in video, like because most of them aren't like big writers who know all these topics or at least aren't very very familiar with cultural differences even. So you know how the game has those hidden girlfriend points for the golden saucer date?
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
And it's very binary in that choice, where choose one, you get points, choose the other, you don't get any, etc. Yeah. So one of the points that grants it to Tifa to get her on the date is after the first bombing run, and you go stay over at the 7th Evan bar and sleep in. Tifa asks like, "How did you sleep last night, Cloud?" And the options are, "Barrett's snoring kept me up all night." And then the other choice is, "Sleeping beside you, Tifa, who couldn't sleep so soundly?" And the second choice actually grants points to Tifa. And looking at it with modern
I just
eyes,
realized you used no naka-100 ako for the live stream.
Yeah, dude, you gotta make it give something to the fans.
Yeah.
So the second comment is like very misogynistic and all that, But then it adds the girlfriend points to Tifa. So I guess if you were to translate that now, you could word that so much differently and still get the point across that, you show that you care for the character.
That's true, but
instead of basically saying, "Oh my god, your big boobs made me sleep so good."
Well, personally, I didn't really read that line as misogynistic. I just read it as like, excessively flirty. I think what is really weird about that dialogue choice is like, for me, maybe I'm clueless, but for me, when he says, "Oh, I have a choice between complaining about Barrett snoring or saying how nice it is to be with Tifa," I didn't know that complaining about Barrett snoring implied that I stayed close to Barrett during the sleep and, started getting Barrett points for the Barrett date.
So actually on the ruling of the Barrett points is if you don't give enough points to any of the girls, then you get the Barrett date.
Oh.
Yeah.
So there's actually no Barrett points.
Okay.
He's just the default option if you don't hit the threshold of any of the other girls.
Which implies that the designers and the developers are like, we don't need to have a separate Barrett stat because, if you're normal, you will inevitably rack up some points with one of the girls.
Right. One of the 3 girls even.
Yeah, that to me is like the implication of not having a Barrett stat. It's kind of like, you must have messed up for you to have 0 points in anything.
Right. Which is actually also a mirroring factor for Remake, because the same kind of rules apply. You can give like favor points to either Aeris or Tifa, but if you fail at any of those, Barrett shows up in chapter 14. That one scene, which is actually also really great because that scene is amazing.
Which scene was that? I mean, we don't have to spoil it too much, but which scene was that? Because I checked after I finished the game. I checked my points, and I think I did okay with Tifa, but I didn't do so great with Aeris. So in the final battle, like it was Tifa and Barrett who showed up before Aeris, and I realized that the points that they were tracking combat use as well, and that wasn't a thing in the original game, right?
Combat use, I don't believe, was part of the original game, but what I'm referencing is the resolution scene in Chapter 14 of Remake, which actually the game tracks if you check your intel numbers, because you get one of 3, and it actually tracks which of those you've gotten, or which of those you've seen, rather. And that is pretty much the same ruling as the Golden Saucer date in the original game.
Just imagine the Golden Saucer in the remake.
Dude, I can't wait.
Jesus Christ.
I can't wait.
I remember you mentioned in the stream, like, if Wall Market blew your mind, what more like Gold Saucer and whatever.
Yeah.
Gold Saucer needs to blow your mind.
I'm only going to Golden Saucer for one thing and one thing only. Give me
boxing?
fucking Kate Sith.
Oh, I was hoping you would say, "Give me the Omni Slash." That's where you get it in the original game.
No, give me Kate Sith. Like, that's where he shows up in the original game, right?
Yeah, that's where he joins your party.
Yeah.
We got half of Kate Sith in the remake, so
You get one scene.
you get one.
They don't mention it at all.
Yeah, you just see for all the new players of Final Fantasy VII, they just go, "What the hell is that cat freaking out about?"
It's not even a real cat. It's a plush cat looking over the edge, sadly. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he does the anime grief, like kneel on the floor, pounds the ground. All that's missing is a scream.
I know, right?
As he looks to the sky. But yeah, last thing I want to mention about classic FF7 is seeing the parallel of the pacing between the two. Is like, because we all know that the Midgar section of classic FF7 is like 5 to 7 hours long, but you don't really feel that until you've actually played it, where a big section in Remake turns out to be just a room in classic. Like the entire turning off the sun lamps and doing all the scaffolding, climbing around and fighting things. That was just one room in the original game. And you don't even turn off any sun lamps, so... Like, Remake adds a ton of fluff, but at the same time adds a lot of context to the story. So I appreciate it in that regard, but I do understand the complaints about Remake being excessively padded. Especially in the later chapters where it becomes way more apparent in that regard.
I think the only thing, like, I don't think it's spoiler free, but the only thing that's set that was too padded, that it doesn't seem like it adds more weight to the story, is the Hojo section. That's about it.
Oh yeah,
because
that maze is just dumb.
Yeah,
because
it's
like
long. It's long.
like for example, one padding was like you don't really have to extend the journey between Aerith and Cloud going to her house when they first meet. Like the whole going to the roof. But there is reason for it because you can actually spread out the relationship and actually see the world of Sector like from afar.
Right.
So
Yeah, and
I can put that argument there if you want to somewhat defend that padding. But the Hojo section, I don't. that's harder to actually to talk about.
That's like stretching it already to the limit.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment, Carlos. I feel like what makes the Aerith Sector 7 shit work properly is that, sure, okay, maybe it takes a hell of a long time and way more physical space to get to her house than an original. But it's by moving through that space that they're able to pace the dialogue and pace, like, this sort of back and forth between them that makes the relationship more meaty and more interesting that you couldn't do if the distance was much shorter.
Exactly.
And
like it's a lot more of a believable relationship at that point.
Yeah, and with Hojo, the Hojo situation is that nothing is happening lore-wise or, character development-wise in that lengthy maze sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And we can talk about Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VII Remake, like forever, which is why we're going to be starting a spin-off podcast, the Final Fantasy VII Cast. Am I right?
Yeah, it's worth like Final Fantasy VII is like worth like what 100 episodes, just as much, like half of what we've done so far. Yeah.
Well, let's make it a freaking goal, right? Let's like.
I'm not joining the podcast. Like, you guys can enjoy that one. I'll just broadcast every now and then.
Come on, Miggy, let's do it.
Maybe I'll think about it. I can't stop talking about those games. But to
you're
close things off for.
I think you're halfway. I think.
No, I'm still in disc 1. Like it's a pretty chunky game. Like there's a lot to do that is not required of you for like main quests and all that. But to end the conversation, because like FF7 Classic gets a bad rap for having quote unquote poor graphics with the little Lego people that they have on the overworld.
It has its charms.
Yeah, it really does, and I'd say that despite not having hands or mouths. Those little Lego people are very expressive at times. Like, you get a lot of the emotion off through just, like, maybe Cloud doing a sassy pose like an asshole. Just to get the point across that he's being smug, Or, like those mini games where you have to pretend you're a soldier to impress Rufus in his parade.
Yeah.
And how the soldiers are freaking out, like, you're late, get in costume quick, and you forgot how to do the practice, let me call in the other two, we'll do it right now. And then you see the two of them, like, freaking out in a hurry as they, frivolously vibrate their tiny arms or something in frustration.
Yeah, that's what's really interesting about Final Fantasy VII, even compared to Final Fantasy VI and the games before it, is that those games relied on sprite animation and therefore could use exaggerated faces to communicate emotion. But because characters in FF7 don't really have faces, or they're too low resolution textures on the heads, they really relied on pantomime expressions, on using broad, exaggerated gestures with their club hands and club feet to sort of communicate emotion. And I think it's not perfect; it has its limitations, but it's still interesting and does things very differently from what's come before.
It definitely works a lot better than how I remembered it.
Yeah.
Because back in my mind, I didn't think, like, you could possibly get that much emotion from these little tiny Lego people. But then playing the game again, with, like, a almost fresh perspective, I'm like, yo, this is really good. I'm having a blast with it.
They had to work with what they had, and so, they had to notch up the hand movements and everything. And I think there's a video out there, I forgot what it's who did it, but he analyzed the opening sequence of the original of Final Fantasy VII and the remake.
You're talking about New Frame Plus. I think there was New Frame Plus, the channel devoted to video game animation. They
focusing on on how they handled Aerith in the original and the remake based off what they had only, because of, like, in the original you're pretty much seeing the most that they can do with animation at that point, because it's dead and everything. But in the remake,
it's a great video. Check it out.
Yeah, they explicitly explain that they set the tone in so many different aspects with that similar same scene now. And not only is it like a great way to start the game again, but it's just a good picture of how far they've come already in terms of technology and what we can do. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same scene.
I also remember hearing that like the graphical limitations is what affected like some of the character designs. Like the reason why Aerith is dressed the way she is because like it would be easier to render and animate.
Yeah,
that's why her like she's basically two colors, right? Like two shades of red.
And I think the animation that I was mentioning, like the way she like stands up from her position. From what I remember from that video, she doesn't really stand up in the animation. They just rise the model up.
Yeah,
they move the camera
pretty much.
They just lift her up from below the camera positioning.
Yeah. So that's just really interesting. I'll probably put it in the link below because that's worth checking out if those are interested in the animations. Because I was like, ooh, wow. Animation.
Her legs can only bend so far.
That sounds wrong, but
yeah, dude.
Moving on, Matt, you've actually been playing Gears Tactics, a game that I like to think that was a big surprise from that franchise to go to that kind of genre, which is like a XCOM like strategy RPG.
Yeah, most everybody knows I'm a big Gears gearhead, and so when they announced a couple years ago that Gears was coming to Tactics, I was like, heavy breathing, chainsaw intensifies, all that stuff. And I think the game is good, but it's not without its problems. I think for my money, I think like the graphics, the attention, the graphics they put into the game, it really feels like a big deal Gears experience, not just it's not just a strategy game where they just repainted the models or everything like that. And there's a unique spin to how they approach squad-based tactics that makes it distinctively Gears while giving it a lot of momentum. The game is interesting. It's when you do the squad-based tactics, there are little changes like when you go all the way, when you move your character, he has a set amount of distance that he can cross, but if he approaches cover, the game will give you additional points of movement to slide into cover, mimicking how in the original game, if you press like the cover button and you're like 5 feet away, the game will automatically will slide you into cover for free with no hassle. And that's kind of neat. And the other thing is that it puts an emphasis on executions and momentum. Now, what happens is, in Gears Tactics, sometimes when you shoot down an enemy, they don't die, they get downed instead, just like in the
original.
Third-person shoot.
I mean,
in the original.
Yeah.
So they're all crawling around, going like, suffering. And it's up to you to either to execute them or shoot them some more. Now, if you execute them, that requires you to approach the bad guy in close range and hit them with whatever. Yeah, stab him, chainsaw him, beat him to death with your bare fists. And when you do that, an additional action point is given to every character you control on the board, except the person who's doing the execution. So in theory, when you execute, you can keep generating loads of action. So you might have, let's say, 12 action points distributed from your 4 squad members, but, doing a series of executions and timing everything perfectly and coordinating, you can start, like, one character might take 7 actions in a single turn or 8 actions in a single turn, which is what I do for my sniper. I just let her, park on the ground and let everybody else go in the front lines and,
execute everybody and then let her just like pick it off.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's more of like a risk and reward kind of system that if you want to get up close and then you think you can actually pull off an execution, that will reward you for more momentum, more in your favor. Okay.
Yeah, and it's cool. I think, like many other games that are sort of new and fresh, I feel like this is a game where I'm going to be waiting for the sequel. I'm going to be really excited to see what they do, because one of the things that Gears Tactics doesn't have is it doesn't have a strategic overlay, which I think is nice. It sort of liberates you from the idea of, okay, when I say it doesn't have a strategic layer, you know how in XCOM and the recently released XCOM Chimera Squad, when you finish a combat mission and you go back to base, you have other duties to do. You have to sort of research new technologies, balance the relationship with member nations of the XCOM project. You have to equip and manufacture weapons and gear for everybody. There's a lot of sort of like prep work and sort of long-term planning that goes on inside the base before you drop down for a real in-your-face sortie. And Gears eschews that. It does not have any of that strategic layer. It does have a sort of like, you still, every time in between missions, you still plan, like, you get gear and you equip it and you put points into skills. And by the way, the skill trees in this game are incredibly deep. I love them a lot. Each character can specialize into, there are 6 classes and there are 4 specializations in each class. So that's
you're controlling the characters, or you have your own sortie, like
squad. You have a squad. So
but but the gears or the characters, are these like characters or the ones you've made? Like
okay, thank you for asking that question. Like the Gears characters do, there are named characters. There's Gabe Diaz, Michaela Dorn, and Sid Redburn, who are the primary characters of this game, and they all connect to the Gears lore on some level. But they are the big important guys, and in fact, when they get downed or when they die in combat, it's game over.
Oh
it's
shit!
Game over
I was joking, but it actually happens. Okay.
Yeah, it's game over instantly. And I think, of course, that is the creatively correct decision to do, but it also loses some of like the fun of XCOM, which is on higher difficulties in XCOM. Sometimes you absorb losses, or you tell yourself, you know what, I'm willing to lose this if it's the price I pay for victory. And and that's sort of like the fun, the thing that people talk about with XCOM. They go like, I'll name my character after Carlos, I'll name my character after Miguel. And then tomorrow I'll tell them, and then tomorrow I'll tell them, you died while facing off one of the Thin Men, or, a Muton, like, just barrel rolled straight into your face.
The whole TMG squad was just mutilated by robots.
Yeah. And unfortunately, you don't get to do that in Gears. And what that does is, it denies you the opportunity to say victory at a price. You know what I mean? There are non-story characters, like you can recruit squad members who you can name after people, but all too often the story missions require you to bring those named characters. So it's like 2 out of at least 1 to 3 people in your squad will not be expendable.
There's just one guy you have to worry about. Like, please don't die.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks, like.
Is this appealing to you, Migs? Like you actually played Chimera Squad. Is that right? Chimera Squad.
Yeah, Chimera Squad,
which is also another turn-based.
It's I don't know, like that game's more forgiving compared to what I'm hearing right now in Gears. Like this, similar to Gears, whenever someone goes down, like to 0 when it comes to their HP, they're just go down, like they'll be in the down state for a couple of turns until they really die. But
no, there's a down state also for Gears Tactics, mind you.
Yeah,
and I have been playing XCOM Chimera Squad as well.
Yeah,
so I have a similar point of comparison.
I don't know, like it's much more loose, I guess, compared to what Matt was describing, Gears Tactics. So yeah.
I would love to talk about XCOM Chimera Squad later if you're up for it and if you have time. But so Gears Tactics sort of like, I want this game to be perfected if they ever get around to making a sequel, because there's a lot of stuff about it that's appealing. Like so often when we play strategy games, we kind of expect story to not be a story and character to take a backseat. Mm-hmm. We kind of expect production values for things like cutscenes and character models. Like if you play Gears Tactics, you'll see some of the most beautifully detailed, sort of amazingly like destroyed beauty. You'll see this beautiful destruction, of a planet that's just been ruined by centuries of war, because of the graphics and everything like that. And that XCOM doesn't really have. But unfortunately, that experience really is marred by some of these things that I wouldn't call bad decisions, but they take a toll. There's a cost to the things that they made. The cost of having a creative decision, of having characters who cannot die, and not have a strategic layer, which sort of like takes away from, like the richness of the game. But the combat is excellent. The feeling of momentum is so good that it would be a shame for them to not develop this further into something, that really, really sings.
Either that or they go Gear 6. Like, just keep rising up the numbers, I guess.
Yeah, Gears is going to be inevitable. I mean, actually, that's one interesting thing I think about the Gears franchise is that it's always been a tactical game. You know what I mean? Like, when you fight in Gears of War, it's not the typical, like, 360 no-scope, a high-speed who can shoot first kind of action. There's a sense
But you can do that. I tried. Not advised, but yeah.
No, but right, like when you fight with someone, when you in Gears, you have to sort of like take into consideration how many, like, there's a sort of dance that happens, and you sort of know that you're measuring things in your head, and even like the positioning of a cover, it's all very tactical. It's just going on at real time, and so
Gears it's going very tactical, and I think it's still one of those. Like one of the only shooters that benefit you if you reload properly.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which is so annoying, but it's just like, no, this is a thing pala in Gears. Fuck.
Yeah.
Like if you press it right, the moment while you're reloading, you get a fast reload and more damage. So that's the one thing about the Gears franchise in the nutshells, where it's still a shooter. Everybody knows you're playing gearheads and you're killing, you're trying to save the world, but the game mechanics has these really cute things that are just so different even to this day. Okay, that's a Gears game. Like, they have that like automatic magnet cover that no one does yet. They still have the reload. What's interesting is Gears can stay unique, and I think also the tactics version of Gears can also remain unique, because in the strategies world, that seems pretty different for that genre, at least.
More games need to have active reload.
Yeah, because it's really it is very simple and really boring. Just press R, just wait for it to be done.
Yeah.
This one,
I mean,
there's like a skill check. If you don't do it, you're gonna jam your gun.
Yeah. I don't think the idea should remain only with Gears. Like, I think Miguel's right. Everybody should start adding mechanics like active reload. But I'm pretty sure Microsoft would be very protective of that idea, since it is like part of the identity of what Gears is.
I just wonder, why don't people like add in? Is it more of a that's my question right now? Is it more of a burden or more of a thing that just Gears that works for Gears only?
Well, I'd like to counter you with a different question, not to change your subject, but which is like, why aren't there more squad-based tactic games that are?
Oh, I would love. Actually, I would love more of that, and I would love more of things that are just very XCOM related. When I see it, like, that's an XCOM game, I would love to get it. Just like how when someone sees an RTS or a fighter, like, I like fighting games, I'll try that shit. Like that's hopefully what happens. The next battle royale is like XCOM like games. Let that happen.
Yeah, please. I mean, there are plenty of XCOM style games like Phantom Doctrine, Hard West, Into the Breach, Invisible Ink, all those kinds of games. But I do think few of them are as, meaty and satisfying as XCOM 2 and as Gears Tactics. You know what I mean? Like, have the same kind of production values and dedication from a big studio like Firaxis Games, or in the case of Gears Tactics, Splash Damage and the Coalition.
Was that XCOM Chimera Squad is a weird thing. Is that a spin-off? I mean, like, it's still a strategy game, but this is more of like a dumbed-down version. I'm not dumbed down. I don't know if it's the wrong word. But
let me help you with that one, and then I think we should pass the mic over to Miguel so he can talk about the game, because I've only put like 4 hours into the game, but I think he has more to say about it. And XCOM Chimera Squad is basically a stripped down, streamlined version of the XCOM experience that sort of is also a direct sequel to XCOM 2.
Yeah.
They set it up so that after the events of XCOM 2,
did we lose again?
No, we won.
No,
we actually won this time.
Because that's XCOM 2's thing. Like, we lose.
That was XCOM 1. XCOM 1 was like...
sorry.
They made the compromise.
XCOM 1 was like the Warcraft situation. Remember in the end of Warcraft, the orcs win? Yeah, in XCOM 1, the aliens win. And in XCOM 2, the humans win again, but this time they developed a new city called City 16, I think, and that is a place where they're sort of experimenting with alien integration and human integration. Because remember, in the lore of XCOM, the aliens who are attacking you, they're not willing agents. They're actually slaves to a psionic race. So the mutants aren't bad. They're just like enslaved. You know what I mean? And so it's streamlined in the sense that Firaxis Games is sort of creating this version of XCOM that sort of has a smaller production budget, but is experimenting with new ideas and interesting things. And I think Miguel should take over from here.
Well, actually, I've played a little bit of Chimera Squad too.
That's the plot
Oh,
twist.
really?
Matt knows.
Are we
no,
sending you back
I
to
think-
school? Are we sending you back to school
That's the
now?
plot twist.
Is that,
Yeah.
Is that it?
Because I was trying to stop you, Matt, a bit, but you know, I want to let you I want to make you share what's all about or what's the gist of it. But yeah, I've played probably 6 or 8 hours of Chimera Squad, and it's not. I don't know, I would say that it is kind of like a toned down.
Well, for one, it has like a breaching idea, which kind of blew my mind. Like, wow, everything just slows down forever.
Oh yeah,
It just doesn't want to stop.
not really forever. Like
It's like Final Fantasy 7R when you press command, like it's that slow. Like you can just go to
Oh,
the
yeah,
bathroom, take a bath, and then it'll come back. It's
Sure.
he's still running.
yeah, but yeah,
Maybe it's
that's,
Carlos' turn to talk about XCOM Chimera Squad. How about that?
But yeah, the breaching feature, like the breaching mechanic, is the main feature for that
Hook.
game, and it did change it. It made the game a bit easier when it comes to the first few minutes of every campaign or every skirmish. And what it does is that you position your agents to entry points, and how you position them or where you position them, sometimes they give bonuses. Like, for example, you get added defense if you reach in this entry point, or the last person who will go to this entry point will be more susceptible to
Defended or
damage
something.
or have more accuracy. So there's still a lot to juggle when it comes to planning about, breaching. And so far, the game is still XCOM, so it's still complex, or it's still deep, so it's still a fun strategy game. But it's not that. What I would say is that it's not that as personal as it is compared to XCOM 2, because they basically create characters for this game, so there are characters that are tied to the story, and I think every character here is tied into the campaign, so you really can't change that much, except for their loadouts. But if you're expecting to actually create a customized player in this game, this is not the XCOM for you.
Yeah. I do think that XCOM 2, I think I adore XCOM 2, and I think I even love it more than XCOM Enemy Unknown.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand when people look at that game and play it, and it can become a very overwhelming game. It's always asking you to fight off the Ascension Project, or whatever it's called. It's always asking you to chase against turn timers and objectives that might destroy themselves before you can reach them. It's a game that is constantly clenching and pressuring at you, and I think XCOM Chimera Squad is admittedly easier, but I think that's sort of the point. The point is to focus on your decision making rather than pressure you into rather than holding a gun to your head and saying you choose who lives or who dies.
Right. And I think the difficulty that was removed on the main skirmishes on Chimera Squad was transferred actually to the campaign part of Chimera Squad, because before
the overlay and stuff,
before every skirmish, you get to do some planning. You get to check out your city's map, and I think for each day there will be added chaos points. I'm not sure what the proper name
Unrest.
is.
That sounds horrible.
Uprising. So basically, there are like segments in the map or districts in the map where if you're not giving much thought of this district or parang pinabayaan mo lang sila, it will build up uprising points or chaos points. So you still have to look out for that one. Like for example, if you would place like a sortie in that district, that would kind of mitigate or delay the points to spread faster. So stuff like that. So it's more on managing like a lot of stuff before actually playing the skirmish part of the game.
Yeah, I feel like what it does is that the whole unrest system is it takes the whole idea of, you know, trying to prevent member nations of the XCOM project to quit.
Yeah.
You know, just sort of like, you know...
like on the old games where,
the old
China
game,
is,
the whole
or
funding thing.
Russia is
and
going
merging
to...
it with the other thing, the Ascension meter, the sort of evil alien project meter.
Yeah.
Because when a city sector, when its unrest fills up, it doesn't mean that it's going to quit and it's going to take away its funding. But what happens is it starts actively contributing to the big old danger meter at the top.
Yeah.
And so you want to prevent all those individual sectors from filling up the big bar.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unless you really want
that's
a big challenge for that game. So. But yeah, overall, XCOM Chimera Squad is it's a smaller game. It's more compact, but
cheap.
the difficulty is still
Super
there.
cheap.
Oh yeah, that's right. It
Yeah,
was
it's
$10
really
when it launched. I think it's $20 now. Like what they did was they lowered the price before it came out.
I think I got it
you know,
for like 8 yet or
your chance has passed, son.
Yep. But
How much is it now? Chimera Squad's now 750 pesos.
Wow.
Whoa.
That was,
Well,
yeah, it was
so
cheaper.
decent.
You snooze, you lose it.
Snooze,
Yeah,
yeah.
$15.
I got
It
it
was
for like 300. Yeah,
before.
yeah.
Still though.
Compared to what, the
So-
XCOM 2 game, which is like 1.8. If it's there's no sale
Yeah.
happening on the Steam. Yeah.
So it's like the perfect introductory game for people who have not XCOM.
I'd like to think,
I
that's
would
the
say
perfect way
that,
of saying
yeah.
it, Miggy. Yeah. Like,
And-
here's a small taste, and now save the world next
Yeah.
time.
And also, I have like a
Do your
fond,
shit.
like I'm fond of like smaller tactical teams involved in strategy games like SWAT.
Oh, there's a lot of
or-
discounts happening right now. It's Wednesday.
So
That's true.
that's a selling point for me when buying Chimera Squad.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, XCOM Enemy Unknown, the original from 2012, is also 750 pesos. So if for some reason you guys haven't played that one,
go with
I
that one.
I recommend everybody to check it out.
Oh, yeah. That's another,
It doesn't-
the first one. The one we didn't
Yeah, I
lose.
mean, it doesn't come out with the enemy within, like, DLC or any of that stuff, but still, it's, you know...
It's a
it's,
full
It's
game.
a pretty solid... Yeah,
It's a full game.
Yeah.
Man, I want strategy games. I hope we get to see more of it.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I like to
aside
think
from
Final Fantasy Tactics started it. I think, at least for me, you know, and hopefully we see more like it.
But yeah, aside from Chimera Squad, another game I played is actually from the mobile
From the mobile
platform, and that is
we're going to mobiles now.
yeah, I'm going to mobile gaming right now for some reason. Well, I was just curious and I tried it out, and I actually played King of Fighters AllStars, and it's a
Okay.
it's, yeah, weird, right? So this is a gacha brawler game, and
Akin to like the Double Dragons or Tekken Forces.
yeah, or
In terms of gameplay?
surprisingly enough, just like the game that I actually played last week, which is Streets of Rage 4. So I have that brawler itch, and
Yeah, dude.
this game is just they went ham with all of the available characters in the King of Fighters universe. So not only are you gonna see one Kyo or one Iori it's
You're gonna
probably
see
all the
all-
versions. So from
Isn't that
KOF,
isn't that what gacha is all about though? That's similar to what
Right.
like Final
Yeah.
Fantasy is doing with
yeah,
like you have
but
all the Final Fantasy universe. Like you can have like 13 lightning
Yeah.
just join you in your
What I'm
gacha thing.
Freaking Brave Exvius has like the many iterations of Cloud, like Classic Cloud,
Oh,
Kingdom
God.
Hearts Cloud, Advent Children
H
Cloud.
Cloud.
yeah,
Every Cloud.
but
Yeah.
what I'm saying here is that King of Fighters is like the perfect game for
Oh,
this.
dude, you're not wrong.
Because if all the years or all the games that spanned in this franchise, so you get not only 94 Kyo, 95 Kyo, 2000 Kyo, and all of the numbers you can think of in the calendar. You also
Basically,
get
any Kyo with a different shirt.
right.
He's in there.
You can actually make it also. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but you'll also get some new and quirky, fun characters. Like for example, there's a baseball themed Yuri or Athena. So there's also like beach themed characters.
Of course, there are.
So and they have different moves, which is kind of
Yeah.
cool. So it's cute. It's fun, and you know, since this is a gacha game, you will just end up collecting everyone and trying to collect everyone. And I guess that's the main appeal because of the plethora of characters you will find in this game. Because it's the King of Fighters franchise. But
Right, and King of Fighters is like one of the, I guess, earlier instances of crossover games.
yeah, you could say that.
Sure, they're all within the same company, but most of the characters come from various different games from the SNK universe, right?
Right, like Fatal
So, like,
Fury.
Athena
or-
is from a side-scrolling
Psycho
RPG
Soldiers.
action game. Ikari Warriors are from a top-down, like, shooter beat-em-up.
It's not
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
like what Street Fighter like to do like in their universe. Like all of a sudden,
Kinda,
you
but
have,
never to that degree.
Yeah,
Well, it's
Like,
true,
Street Fighter
'cause
will... Like, now Street Fighter has added stuff from...
Final
they have like
Final
Poison,
Fight, right?
which is like Final
Yeah.
Fight stuff, right?
Yeah.
Final Fight. But then what other big example can you think of
Yeah.
outside of, say, Final Fight, right? For the most
Yeah.
part. Meanwhile, King of Fighters alone has, like, Art of Fighting characters, Fatal Fury characters, and then its own new roster
Right.
from KOF. So it was essentially 3 games in one right off the bat.
Everybody's being friends.
I think like they're the first one to introduce like 3v3 team battles
Yeah.
on fighting games, which is it's such a thing back in the day in the arcades because at least I get to play with 3 characters instead of 1.
Right. I get to play longer with 3 different characters.
Right. But yeah, the gameplay in this one though, so this is a brawler, and I guess the controls, this being in the mobile is a bit simplified. So you still, you get to move your character by just dragging your thumb down on the left side as the left stick, and then there are like individual buttons for the main attack and some of the special attacks. And I guess some of depending on the character you're using and how beefed up he is when it comes to like the skills he has equipped or the character level, you could add in more buttons on the right side of the screen because you have that represents
She has
how
so much
many
space in the
moves.
mobile phone.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, it's pretty much easy, and of course there's like the fucking auto battle button. That's not gonna like even in this type of game.
That's the one
there's still
thing
an auto battle.
well, it's just not my cup of tea when it comes to gacha because of the auto battle. It's just
yeah,
I don't
mean-
know. Like that's not just because of KOF or any other like besides just any game like it where you like auto battle and then it's just in the corner now, just generating
Yeah.
whatever and killing your battery. And
I
it's
think
like,
after
I'm actually on
after-
the opposite end of that
Yeah.
because I prefer when games have a auto battle system.
Yeah.
And even more so if it's a competent auto battle system.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Totally.
after playing a lot of mobile games recently, I also get to warm up with the idea of having an auto button, like especially on like for a good example is War of Divisions, and I guess this game because there are just times where you just want to grind some chapters in the game's quote unquote story. and
quote unquote story.
you don't
Dude,
like,
no, he's not
like,
joking.
Yeah,
I
like
played a bit of this, and there is actually a story.
Yeah.
And it basically acknowledges every past KOF storyline as well.
Mm-hmm.
But
So-
adds on a little dumb thing now, like, oh, you're playing as digital versions of the characters. That's why they're all here.
yeah, and yeah,
And the bosses are bugs or something.
like the bosses or the enemies introduced here is basically fluff. Like they're just
Yeah, dude.
padded sections of the game. So it's encouraged for you to actually just use the auto button because you'll. I mean, it's fun to actually play it as a brawler, but like judging from the number of chapters and missions that you're gonna do, and it just involves going from route A to B while just punching 3 enemies all in one level. So it kind of gets tedious in a while.
I want to stop you just a minute. Just want to say shout outs to Aaron, who's in the chat right now.
Hey, what's up? Aaron?
And yeah, we're talking about KOF gacha style. That's a
Yeah,
KOF
yeah.
game in the mobile that's in gacha. That's gacha.
Well, we have to mention the current thing that's going on in KOF AllStars.
Oh yeah, that's
And
also
that's
another
the
hook for me.
crazy WWE crossover thing that they're having.
Yep.
That is just. I think. I don't know what to say about that. I think that's
Dude,
because
it's actually really good
Mhm.
because
It's actually-
what you're getting is the kayfabe version of the character.
Yep.
So like there's straight up dialogue between like The Rock and like the primo villains of King of Fighters like Orochi or Rugal, and he's basically trash talking them like they're wrestlers.
Doing a promo.
Yeah, he's cutting
Yeah.
a promo on these super villains with like world-ending power,
Yep.
and is somehow destroying
As you
them.
will.
So like The Rock does his thing where he confronts Orochi, who has like
God.
full-on magic in the form of tattoos and all that. So he goes on like, what's your name? My name is Orochi. It doesn't matter what your name is.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then like, you think you have
School.
tattoos? I have more than you. And like
Oh,
their
God.
bios are also insanely crazy. Because
Well,
The
that's
Rock is, what's his fighting style? The people's fighting style. Because his finisher is the people's elbow.
Oh god.
Who does he fight for?
No,
The people.
I can already imagine like the developers when they got that deal and like, oh my god, I can write a bio about The Rock.
Yeah.
for
They
KO.
sound like they
Oh,
went
God.
absolutely nuts.
This is like
I'm sure they went
Acclaim-
nuts on that idea.
This is like Acclaim's WrestleMania fighting game all over again, where it's
yeah,
everything's
pretty
like.
much.
I just love crossovers when developers can actually just play around with whatever they get from other franchises. Like, ooh, it's like here's
Yeah.
my spin on this bullshit.
I think-
Like, here you go.
I think in this game, like I think the last one before the WWE collab was the Tekken one. So they actually
What was
introduced
that?
Tekken
We didn't have
characters
that.
in this game. No, like
Yes,
Jin,
Negan from
Negan
Tekken
from
7.
Tekken 7, yeah.
Is that the crossover
Official
you're talking
character
about?
from
The
Tekken.
crossover nobody thought was going to happen, but it just
Yeah.
did.
Yes.
Someone was
also
a fan of the
Noctis.
show.
Prince
Oh,
Noctis
yeah.
from Tekken.
Yes, Prince Noctis from Tekken
A
7.
Namco character.
That's another thing.
Yes.
Video
Yeah.
games just don't care anymore. Remember when we thought that Street Fighter cross Tekken would be the biggest like video game crossover of the century?
Did they ever finish that Tekken
No.
Cross Street Fighter?
There's
The
no reason
no. Everybody just forgot. Just keep quiet because I think
No,
everybody
no.
just wants to continue to forget about that. That it didn't.
They
happen.
didn't
It's
forget,
supposed to
like-
happen.
No.
But-
Harada made a tweet asking
Oh.
if there's interest in Tekken Cross Street Fighter because they know. I think they actually want to make it still.
Oh,
There's
cool.
actually no reason to because Tekken 7 is doing so well,
Yeah.
right?
Like-
So like I feel like hopefully we'll get it eventually, but it might be another 5 years from now.
Is that their break glass in case of emergency situation? Like
Probably.
Because like Final Fantasy VII Remake, that's Square Enix's break glass in case of emergency, and they did that. So Bandai maybe like, shit, bring back the Street Fighter X Tekken, go make now, and then all of a sudden, big game in the world.
I still want it because I want to see how they translate charged characters into Tekken.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just thinking about that idea, just is complete. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Aaron in chat commented that Smash is the ultimate collab. I mean, sure, but that's also like all Nintendo properties for the most part, up until like the guest character that was Sonic and Snake.
That's actually the same talk of like how crazy it can be. Like, oh shit, Metal Gear. Okay, that was weird.
That's fine. But those are just like individual guest characters. Street Fighter Cross Tekken was two franchises going off on each other from completely different realms of like fighting game styles, like 2D versus 3D fighting games, right?
That's true.
Yeah. Also, I want to point out, you know, when it comes to Smash Brothers and the whole collaboration, the whole like guest character stuff, people actually want to work with Nintendo. People are actually like saying, "Oh yeah, Smash Brothers, yeah, put my character there." What in the case of like the crossovers like Street Fighter and Tekken?
I'm sure Ed Boon says, "Put Scorpion, I dare you."
Dude,
in the case of Street Fighter and Tekken, that's a purely coercive relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't want nobody wants to do it. Nobody, you know, they're just like, well, if we unite together, we'll have more power, but we don't really want to do it.
Oh god.
I'm more behind just seeing how 2D fighting game characters translate to 3D, because that's like a larger, more difficult step than saying like a 3D character going into a 2D fighting game.
Yeah.
Which I'd say like they did do pretty well in terms of Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Like a lot of the moves do reflect from their Tekken variant to Street Fighter, but of course like you had to give like Kazuya a Hadouken motion for like his special step and all that.
Also, they did actually adapt mechanics from Tekken very well to that game, like wave dashing.
Right.
If you wave dash, you actually get to dodge fireballs.
Projectile invulnerability, yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool.
And the dialogue combos are all present there.
So, yeah.
And like, on the other side, Akuma translated really well to Tekken 7.
Yeah,
that's
top
like
tier levels, yeah.
Like that's the testing phase. Like Akuma and Geese are pretty much testing phases for Tekken versus Street Fighter.
But
that's
then
right,
again,
they have
also...
Geese too. I totally forgot Tekken has fucking...
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but also like the motions for Akuma and Geese, like I said, are like sweeping motions, like for fireballs and all that. But think about doing a Z motion in Tekken. How does that work? How does Crouching Guile work in Tekken where nobody jumps?
Now I want a gacha Tekken game with the whole universe of Tekken. Imagine
Dude,
Jin 1,
that's
2,
the
3,
dream.
That's just King of
that.
Fighters All-Stars, I guess.
Yeah.
And then you just was that you press auto for Jin to just keep on sidestepping hit or whatever.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Duria.
So yeah. So far I'm enjoying the mobile KOF All-Stars game. And yeah, if you really wanna check out the madness that is just like there's just a bajillion number of characters available in this game, go ahead. It's fun. Just looking at it.
Right. I've actually tried this too before. Pretty much when it came out.
Right.
And it's all right. Like it plays better than you'd expect because you know that stigma where like, oh, it's a mobile game, it's probably gonna play like trash.
Yeah.
But this plays pretty much true to like as a beat 'em up.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Like if like I'm having much more fun in this game compared to like dare I say War of Divisions, because this is more like this is an action game. It has brawler mechanics and it's fun. Like collecting characters
Weirdly
here
enough,
is fun.
It makes more sense because it's a brawler. But if you put War of Divisions, like
it gets too
I
complicated.
sometimes don't like putting the auto battler in War of Division simply because I don't want my main character to constantly keep throwing throw because that's his only ability to do ranged attack. Like how am I gonna control? Like I have less like it just bothers me more in that aspect. Whereas in I guess in that game, punching always works with what you have to do.
Yeah.
So I get what Migs is saying though, that King of Fighters All-Star is like a lot more honest as a video game than most other mobile games out there.
Yeah.
at the very least, before you hit the wall, it just feels like a video game. You know, you're actually controlling your character. You're not relying on some luck-based mechanic or, you know, some AI-driven fluff that wants to pretend it has depth, but, you know. I'm sure it gets to that point where stats still win if you put enough hours into it.
Oh, no,
that's
yeah,
what War
I'm
of
sure.
Divisions also became. Like, the tactics part doesn't really matter if you're, like, 50 levels above the AI you're fighting.
Throw stone, kills 2 people with 1 stone. But
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. That sounds awesome. Wait, should we put it out of the way since you actually put a thumbnail on this podcast? People are wondering when we're going to talk about Sean Bean.
Oh yeah,
dude.
What happened to your week, Carlos?
We haven't been talking about Sean Bean yet.
You?
What happened to me? Because I had something. Because like what Civ 6 happened went free on the Epic Games Store last week, so the whole world has it.
Yep.
It's still free today.
Oh, it's still free today. Okay, and I think they have another mystery game happening on the Epic Games Store soon.
If by mystery you mean like we're gonna be getting I believe Borderlands Handsome Collection.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, it's coming out
or
tomorrow, I think. What would be the mystery game tomorrow, I wonder?
It's Borderlands Handsome Collection or Ark Survival Evolved.
Huh. Okay.
Or Saints Row.
No, because Saints Row Remastered just came out. Stop getting your hopes up.
I know, I should stop winning this. Anyway, but yeah, I went to that rabbit hole with Civ 6 hard. I mean, like, I just like...
Oh yeah.
Like long weekend? What long weekend? Like it's just, that was Civ 6 all the way.
It's just 30 minutes of Civ 6 for you.
Huh?
It's just 30 minutes of Civ 6 for Carlos. The
I
whole
think it goes
weekend.
on longer than that.
Yeah.
It's
like 4 hours a day.
I mean, what I'm saying is the time isn't present during the whole weekend.
I don't know. Like, it's not because Civ 6 is a really good iteration of that franchise. It's because like I kind of just miss Civ in general, and every time I jump into it, I just can't stop playing. It really gets you into it, and then you're just all of a sudden 4 hours passed. Like shit.
Okay, let's focus here. Let's focus on the most important part about Civilization.
Oh no.
When of Civilization 6, which is how does Sean Bean die?
Huh? Oh, sorry, what?
How does Sean Bean die?
Oh god.
Oh,
he didn't.
I hear like a faint
Disappointingly, he
hiss every time he talks, and that's every single technology in the game. So I think I think he dies every single time you get a new tech.
Oh god.
So he's living. He's like crap. What's that movie? He's like Edge of Tomorrow. You know, he's just dying every time.
He comes back every single time.
I really did not know it was Sean Bean the whole time. I hear it like this is the only voice you hear in the game mostly because he iterates, like he narrates every single quote whenever you get a new wonder, a new technology, and everything. And then I think when I was streaming it, I thought was it Monday. Somebody in chat says like, who's voicing Civ 6 this time? I'm like, I don't know, maybe Sean Bean. It sounds like Sean Bean. Apparently it was Sean Bean.
Well, that was a pretty good guess on your part, huh?
Yeah, it was like actually pretty crazy. But yeah, like Civ 6, I don't like, it's addicting, but at the same time it's super tiring.
Yeah, it's a time sink.
I think it's more like information overload, thinking of like so many different things all at the same time after every single turn. And I'm barely doing anything, and I still get tired after like maybe 2 hours of play, and I have to break. It's
well, I'll ask you, like, so how does this, like, are you a devotee of the Civilization franchise? Cause
I played, I think
I am, but I don't want to like speak over that. Like, how does this fare compared to the other Civs for you?
It's a good change. It's a good change because Civ 5 I think is still my favorite because it reminds me of the old Civ games. This one is a big change in different mechanics. So they really made 6 like a new take, I guess, in the game. So it's more like if you want a new version of it, go for Civ 6. But if you want something familiar, 5 is just as perfect. That's what the trick about Civ is. Like, you don't really have to go to 6. You're okay with 5, maybe even 4, actually.
Yeah, I would actually argue that Civ 5 is also a pretty radical change. I think number 4 was really 1 to 4 is really when they.
I have to play 4 again to have a good argument about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but with number 5, because they switched to the hex grid, and that was the first time they went away from the grid based, and they avoided the whole stacking enemy units together and destroying them with one single attack kind of thing, and the whole design for Civ 5 I think was pretty audacious considering what had come before. But I do agree with your assessment that Civ 6 is also a big change, because one of the things they changed is the district system. So in previous Civ games, you would have, when you built improvements, you built them all in a single tile which represented your city. Yeah. And now in Civ 6, if you build, let's say,
a wonder,
a wonder or a research lab, you need to consume one of your neighboring tiles.
You have a lot of decisions you have to make. Like, should I destroy the farm and make everybody starve to make Machu Picchu or not? Like, it's stuff like that. And I've seen the one change I noticed when I was playing this game is I really scope the area and then plan out how I'm going to put everything down. I already have a laid out plan of where to go or what to put, because these districts have bonuses depending on what's beside them.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
if I'll make a city right there near the desert where I can make mines, because my industrial zone can get +1 in production if it's beside mines, for example. So I have to plot it perfectly, like it's surrounded by mines, for example, like stuff like that. At the start of the game, I have my whole starting area all plotted down, and I just hope no one else ruins it. And that's a big change for me, at least when I'm playing this game. That it's a big headache to plan everything.
Yeah, the game has a tendency to reward empires, which is so. Civ fans know that there's 2 ways generally that people like to build their civilizations. They like to build tall or build wide. Now, to build tall is to build a few cities and make sure each city is like a really economically powerful, solid, every city is just really well developed. And others develop them wide, which is to build your empire with many cities spread over a large surface area.
Right, conquering and killing everybody.
Well, you can do that also, but I'm saying is you build many cities and focus on expansion instead of development. And the thing is, past civilizations sort of negotiated that tension, but many fans have pointed out that 6 is really about the developing wide, because if you don't develop wide, you're not going to be able to lock down as many tiles and get as many resources, because each city becomes the cap on each city's growth comes from building districts and taking away farms and all that stuff.
No, and then you have to the wide. I think, at least based on what I've been playing so far, is the most efficient choice. Simply because, in Civ, when you go through the eras, you'll eventually the game or the tiles will eventually just generate oil, for example, all of a sudden, or these special resources. Right. So if you're in a small area, and then you go eventually to modern times where things need oil, all of a sudden you're a country where you need to keep trading with other countries because their area has oil.
That's right.
So if you spread a little bit, you just might get one tile where at least I have some oil, and so at least the burden's a little bit less thanks to you expanding.
Yeah, that's right. Basically, you can't turtle into a small area, because the range of your empire is what is going to guarantee your ability to get resources that don't spawn.
But that's
closer.
The risk.
Yeah. And Civ 6 is definitely, in my opinion, that's what it rewards. I think the thing I still go back to Civ 5 a lot, but I think the thing that really puts me off in Civ 6 is, I love the attitude, I love the spirit and the energy of it, but I don't like the UI. The UI feels a little bit hard to read and clunky and, very, fiddly.
It does look overwhelming a bit.
Oh, that's interesting. I have to check out 5 if it's the same. Yeah.
It does look overwhelming when I tried it. It's much more there's so much info dump compared to, I guess, Civ 4.
I think the kindest read I can provide for Civ 6 is that I don't actually think it's more complex than, or at least incredibly more complex than Civ 4 or Civ 5, but I think it has a tendency to want to give you all the information on the screen at any given time, instead of resorting to sub-menus and sub-panels. And to do that, it uses more shorthand icons, more shorthand numbers. Right. And so what happens is, when you're looking at your UI, there's a tendency for you to go like, okay, what does this mean? I'll click on it. Oh no, I did something. What does this mean? What does that mean?
My city's burning all of a sudden. What's going
Everything's
on?
on fire.
Oh no.
Yeah, whereas in Civ 5, to actually get to those things, you actually have to reach up to the top of the menu and the screen and access those panels before you start messing around with those things.
It's so hard to, like, it's so much information in one screen that sometimes you just forget, like, oh shit, that's happening. Yeah. I think in my game, like, apparently 2 errors ago, my port was on fire and I forgot it was on fire, so the whole time it was just on fire. So it was not getting the most.
It's burning to this day.
Actually, the thing I didn't like was, so in Civilization, historically from Civ 1 to 5, if you cannot put a city, you cannot set a city to not construct anything. Once production is complete, the game will insist you determine what its next production is before you're going to end the turn. If you don't have anything to produce, generally speaking, you could do something like maybe make the city direct its production towards commerce or research, convert those production shields or production hammers into, science bottles and coin or whatever. And, that's fine. At least if you don't want to build anything, the game will at least make sure that that city is useful. And in Civ 6, I found that for like 20 turns, one of my cities wasn't producing anything. And I'm like,
it just got lazy.
Yeah, I'm like, what the heck? In as far back as Civ 1, it would either say, no, you cannot hit enter. You must tell me what you want. You know what I mean? And so that kind of sucked. And I feel like that, is confirmed by the fact that you were able to let your city burn on fire for 2 eras.
The port. The city is fine. It's just the one out, if you look out the window on the coast, you will notice a burning port. But,
well, that point, there should have been a notification or at least some kind of pressure on you to take care of that fire.
Yeah, it was just funny. Like, I'm only earning 1 gold, 1 food there. But if I just fixed it 2 eras ago, I would have had 6. But stuff like that.
Yeah, the human mind has only so much, headroom for all of this stuff, right?
It's amazing how it's still producing food despite being on fire.
That's a thing. That's a funny part.
That's Miguel. That's how you cook a steak. Am I right?
You still gotta work.
It's burnt, but if you chew hard enough, it's
edible. Tasty.
It's edible. No, but yeah, Civ 6 has been a treat. I didn't think I should have learned better, because every time, whatever Civ game I get into, I'm like, see you guys. Like, perfect for the quarantine, really. I have to be gone for a month in the house. Got the perfect game for you. Turn off the phone, and then all of a sudden just conquer the world by yourself.
Maybe that was like intentional, Like for
probably.
Epic Games, like what's a good game to keep people on the platform?
That's
How they're
true.
stuck at home.
GTA and Civ 6. That sounds like a good plan.
Like put up a list of like the longest sit down times we have for games.
And now we get the Borderlands Handsome Collection, which is like 500 hours worth of
shoot and numbers show up.
The pew pew, all the numbers, all information overload again. Oh no!
All the colors, and then next we'll be getting Ark Survival Evolved, and that's like, hey, would you like to spend 500 hours, hunting, raising, and fighting dinosaurs? Go ahead.
Hell yeah, Minecraft plus dinosaurs. Let's go.
Let's go, guys.
What's interesting about Civ lang, like closing it, is that every time they have a new version,
Sean Bean dies.
Mm-hmm. True, but it feels like every time, like for example, when Civ 6 came out, from what I remember, they only had some features that was, I think, present on the 5th. Like people were like wondering, like, 5, correct me if I'm wrong, they eventually added in religion as a form or a feature in your game. And then 6, people were like wondering, will they take out religion again and then sell it as a DLC later on?
Oh,
same
dang.
how they did 5.
Wow.
What they didn't, but they have still the same practices where like, oh, in the next expansion they eventually for 6 they eventually added weather to be a thing.
Yeah, they added like environmentalism and weather and like all that stuff. And I think the next one is what was the other?
No, the first expansion was like World Congress or like having an actual like golden era or a
that's right,
dark era and all of that based on your performances and your successes per era, and your countries can actually go independent if you are a bad person in a way. And then the other expansion was Gathering Storm, which is like the latest one, which is like I said, weathers and the pretty much adding the DLC of the expansion rather of Civ 6, the latest one is pretty much what's the word? Fuck.
That's not the word.
Wow.
I lost it. But pretty much just like the warming of the earth. like
global warming.
Global warming. I can't seem to find that.
Oh my god.
It's a myth.
That's a big issue that actually like all of a sudden the whole like every single player in the campaign has to worry about like later in the game where there's actually a timer where the polar ice cap starts to melt and stuff like that.
I remember that. Like, actually I think, well, first of all, I want to say that climate change has always been part of the Civ games. I remember
but as a DLC is I don't know why they like can just add it in, like it's just there already. That's always been Civ's thing. Where...
Well, I'm gonna get to that, which is like, well, first of all, in Civilization 1, the very first one back in 1990, they didn't really have a climate model system or a strong environmentally sensitive bent. But if you used nuclear weapons and you used them repeatedly, the temperature of the Earth would actually go up. And there would be a little dot that shows that would change color, that would show how bad the temperatures were getting. And if you maxed out that dot, it would cause the entire planet's terrain to change and show more water to reflect the rising of the sea. Now remember, this is back in 1990, so graphics were really primitive back then, and models were very different. And models were very different, but it was a like very cool way cool way to represent it, which is so like forests would turn into swamps, grasslands would turn into I forget again, like rivers, like it would become smaller, and the deserts would turn into grasslands.
I really want, like, I hope they add that in because in Gathering Storm they have something similar where they kind of like if a volcano erupts, whatever has been destroyed or affected, it becomes more richer the moment after it stops erupting. Stuff like that.
So because of the nutrients. Like for me, like when I was 9 years old playing Civilization 1, I was like, I'm gonna bomb the Rome over and over and over again. I don't care if the seas are rising. I was just being a petty child dropping nuclear bombs. I would park like 20 nuclear missiles and just drop them. And the thing is, you can't destroy a city in Civilization 1 with a nuclear missile. You can only half its population. So when you drop a bomb, it goes from 20 to 10 and 10 to 5. And sooner or later, the population has dropped to 2. And when you hit it with a bomb, it goes to 1. And once that reaches that point, you cannot nuke the city from 1 to 0 because half of 1 is still 1, rounded up.
Well, you can keep trying and see how.
So I like to tell myself that in Civilization 1, I had an irradiated small village.
That's what Kojima feared.
It's what Kojima feared. But yeah, I could talk all day about Civilization if ever you want to. And in fact, we could make another podcast about the Civilization series, talking about the history, the way the games develop, the way changes go back and forth.
All right, so we have 2 plans: one for Final Fantasy and one for Civilization.
Exactly.
Each and every game we play.
What's next for this episode?
Well, we're gonna. I just finished purchasing Maneater, so I think we're gonna do a podcast about Maneater, the Shark Week. Yeah, let's do that. The Maneater cast.
Let's gotta set up a Shark Week.
Maneater. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think that's it. Unless anybody has any, final thoughts about anything, and yeah, I think that's for 202. No, that was actually pretty lengthy. It's rare to see all 4 of us together. That. And thanks everybody who actually tuned in on Facebook page. Facebook. I keep saying Facebook page on our live stream on Facebook. But yeah, I think we're good. We try to do this every week. tries like. I guess we can commit to a weekly thing.
We're not going anywhere, guys.
Yeah. We are not for sure, but yeah, we definitely. If those ones were like missed out the whole episode, don't worry, we're gonna be releasing this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Pretty much, we're gonna be releasing it in a more condensed format. So if you wanna check out what we talked about, go ahead and wait. Look out for that. It should be out within the week. But yeah, I think that's it for 202.
I would like to invite everybody who has been listening to the live stream or to the podcast to, if there's anything about the games you want to talk about, just email us, drop us a line at contact@toomuchgaming.net. You can message us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/toomuchgaming. And hell, you can yell at me personally if you think I'm pretty daft. Twitter on I'm at Arcelia Matthew at Twitter.
Yeah, do it. I actually shouted at him one time on Twitter. It actually worked. So yeah, definitely.
Nice.
It really works. He does respond. No, but that's about it. Thanks again for listening in. Check out the next episode, and yeah, thanks guys.
Bye.
Bye.
But the Facebook page continues on.
Yeah.
I think
The soul still burns.